The day I found an eviction notice taped to the front door of my own vacation house was the day my parents stopped being my parents and became something else entirely: enemies. I know that sounds dramatic, but when you walk up to a place you bought with your own money, your own late nights and skipped holidays, and see a piece of paper telling you you've got 30 days to get out, something inside you cracks in a very specific way. I remember the sound before anything else: the crunch of gravel under my boots, the distant hiss of the ocean, and the stupid little squeak the gate made when I pushed it open. My vacation house sits on the Outer Banks in North Carolina, 2 blocks from the water, white siding, blue shutters, a porch swing I painted myself one summer. It's my sanctuary, my I did this proof after years of scraping by. I had driven down from Raleigh that Friday night thinking I'd get a quiet weekend to reset after a nightmare quarter at work. Instead, my headlights swept over the porch and caught that notice taped dead center on the door like a slap. Bright orange, bold black letters. Notice to vacate. For a second, I actually laughed, thinking it was some stupid prank from the college kids who sometimes rented next door. Then I climbed the steps, the boards creaking under my feet, and saw my own name on the paper. Tenant, Rachel Morgan. Tenant. My hands started shaking before I even got the key in the lock. I read the whole thing 3 times, my eyes catching on words that didn't make sense together. Non-payment. Foreclosure proceedings. Transfer of ownership. Transfer of ownership. I own this house free and clear. I bought it 3 years ago, after my divorce, when I finally got promoted to senior project lead. Every extra dollar went into that down payment. There's no mortgage. There's no landlord. There's just me. I stumbled inside and dumped my bag on the floor, the house smelling faintly of salt and dust from being closed up a few weeks. My heart was racing like I'd run the whole way from Raleigh. I went straight to the kitchen, flipped on the light, and laid the notice on the counter like it might explode. The company on the letterhead was some property management firm I'd never heard of. I grabbed my phone and started Googling with clumsy fingers. They were real. Offices in Wilmington and Charlotte. I called the number, pacing between the sink and the back door as the line rang and rang. Coastal Haven Management, this is Amanda, a bored voice finally answered. Hi, yeah, this is Rachel Morgan. I just got an eviction notice at my property in Kill Devil Hills, and I think there's been a mistake. What's the address, ma'am? I gave it to her, listening as her keyboard clacked. Okay, I see the file. This property is under foreclosure review and ownership transfer. That's correct. My throat went dry. No, it's not. I own this house. Outright. There's no foreclosure. There's no... What transfer? To who? I'm seeing foreclosure initiated by First Atlantic Bank for non-payment, followed by a pending transfer to Morgan Family Holdings, LLC. She paused, then repeated it slower, like it might help. Morgan, Family, Holdings. My last name, Morgan. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my fingers went numb. That's impossible. I never took out a loan on this house. There's no foreclosure. There's no LLC. That's my name, but that's not me. I'm sorry, Ms. Morgan. We just managed the property after the bank process. The notice gives you 30 days from date of posting. When was it posted? Yesterday. I almost dropped the phone. Who signed for any of this? Who authorized it? There was another pause. Paper rustling. More typing. According to the file, initial mortgage documents and later foreclosure correspondence were all signed by the owner of record, one Rachel A. Morgan. That's you, right? My middle initial is E. Elizabeth, not A. But looking at that orange paper, hearing my almost name, I suddenly felt like I was the crazy one. I never signed anything, I heard myself say, my voice flat, distant. Can you email me whatever you're looking at? We don't usually... I am telling you someone is committing fraud in my name. Email me the documents. Maybe it was the way my voice cracked on the last word, but she relented, took down my email, and promised to send what she could. I hung up and just stood there in my silent kitchen, hands pressed to my face. For a second, I thought about my ex-husband, Ben. He knew how much this place meant to me, but we'd settled everything cleanly 2 years ago. He was in Charlotte, remarried. We barely spoke. It didn't make sense. My mind did a slow, reluctant slide to the only other people who knew every detail of my life, including the legal ones. My parents. I actually said no out loud, like that would push the thought away. My parents, Mark and Susan, live in Durham. High school sweethearts, church every Sunday, matching Christmas sweaters. They helped watch my brother's kids, volunteered at the food bank. Perfect little suburban couple. Yes, they had their flaws. My mom could be controlling. My dad was always chasing the next money-making scheme. But steal my house? Forge my name? My phone pinged with incoming emails. I opened the one from Coastal Haven with trembling hands. Attached were PDFs, a mortgage deed, loan application, foreclosure notices. My own name stared back at me in neat, fake loops. Except it wasn't quite my signature. It was almost. The R swooped a little differently. The G in Morgan didn't dip the same way. Close enough that a stranger would never question it. But I knew. I knew the way you know your own face. My eyes slid to the notary stamp. My breath caught. Notary. Daniel R. Whitaker. Uncle Dan. My mom's younger brother. The one who always did little favors for family. Title transfers, car sales, random notarized forms. He'd notarized my passport application once. I felt the floor tilt under me. My uncle had notarized forged documents with my fake signature, giving someone permission to take out a mortgage on my house. The buyer listed on the transfer paperwork made my stomach drop even further. Buyer, Morgan Family Holdings, LLC. Manager, Susan K. Morgan. My mother. That was the moment the denial broke. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. My own mother had created a company with our family name. My uncle had notarized fake documents, and they'd used my name to suck equity out of my house until it tipped into foreclosure. For a solid minute, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone was sitting on it. I sat down hard on one of the stools and pressed my fingers into my temples. Some stupid childhood memory popped into my head, out of nowhere. I was 16, standing in a department store while my mom signed up for a store credit card for points. I'd gotten a letter months later about a missed payment on an account I didn't remember opening. She'd laughed it off. "Oh, they must have put it under your name by accident, honey. I'll sort it out." I'd believed her. I'd also spent the next year dealing with weird calls and fixing my credit. Looking at that forged mortgage now, I realized that hadn't been a random mistake. It had been a test. A small boundary crossed, and when I didn't push back, they learned they could step a little further. I should have called the police right then, or a lawyer, or the bank. Instead, I did what 20 years of being their daughter had trained me to do. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, cheerful. "Hi, honey, everything okay? You don't usually call this late." "Mom." My voice came out hoarse. "Are you involved with something called Morgan Family Holdings?" Silence. Just one beat too long. "What's that, sweetie?" she said, all fake brightness. "A company, an LLC, with your name on it." My hands were sweating. "Did you take out a loan on my vacation house?" "Honey, you're not making any sense. What loan? What?" "Do not lie to me." My own voice shocked me. It was cold, sharp, nothing like the apologetic tone I usually had with her. "There's an eviction notice on my front door. The documents are in front of me. Your name, Uncle Dan's stamp, my forged signature. I need you to tell me what you did. Right now." On the other end, she exhaled slowly. When she spoke again, the sugary act was gone. "Rachel, calm down. This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I almost choked. "You forged my name to take a loan on my house. They're foreclosing. How is that a misunderstanding?" "We didn't forge anything," she snapped, defensive now. "Your father and we discussed this with you. You said it was fine if we used the property as collateral for a short-term loan." You probably just forgot the paperwork. You're always so busy. My mind flashed back, searching. There had been a conversation a year ago, I realized, about them looking into a small business opportunity. My dad wanted to finally get ahead with a franchise. I'd told them point blank I wasn't comfortable putting my house on the line. My mom had got icy, said something about family not supporting each other. I never agreed, I said. My voice was shaking now, with anger, with hurt. I said no, I never signed anything. You know I didn't. Well, someone did, she shot back. Maybe you should check your emails better. You sign so many things electronically these days. It's easy to lose track. So that was the angle. Make me doubt myself. Gaslight me, like they always had. Make me the irresponsible daughter who forgot her own financial decisions. Mom, stop. I clenched my jaw. Uncle Dan notarized it. That alone proves this wasn't electronic. And the signature isn't mine. She went quiet. When she spoke again, her tone softened, almost pleading. Rach, listen. Your father's been under so much pressure. The market turned. The investors pulled out. We were going to pay it back before anything like this happened. It's just, the timing got away from us. No one meant to hurt you. That no one landed like a punch, as if intent erased betrayal. How much? I forced out. What? How much did you take? There was another pause. It was a line of credit, honey. 240,000, but it's not like we took all of... I'm hanging up now, I said, because I could feel hysteria bubbling up. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't come near this house. Rachel, you're being ridiculous. We are your parents. We did this for the family. You've always had more than... I hit end call. The silence echoed. My hands were so unsteady I had to put the phone down before I dropped it. $240,000. Against my house, without my knowledge, without my consent. I sank onto one of the bar stools and just stared at the eviction notice. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd gambled with my safety, my future, my one asset that wasn't tied to anyone else. And they'd done it so smoothly, so calmly. They really believed they could convince me I'd agreed. Thinking back, little things clicked into place. My mom asking a few months ago if I was keeping up with my mail. My dad casually bringing up real estate values in the area. My Uncle Dan over Thanksgiving hinting about creative financing and how lucky some people are to have a second property. At the time, I'd shrugged it off as typical family noise. Now, it sounded like foreshadowing. That night, I barely slept. I sat at the rickety kitchen table with my laptop, combing through county records. Sure enough, there it was. A mortgage filed in my name 12 months ago. A line of credit drawing against my equity, then multiple late notices, then foreclosure proceedings initiated 3 months back. The address they'd used for all the correspondence was my parents' house. They had rerouted every warning, every letter, every chance I might have had to stop this. Around 3 a.m, I ended up sitting on the floor with my back against the cabinets, knees pulled up, crying in these little silent gasps. It wasn't loud, dramatic sobbing. It was this quiet, stunned grief, like someone had died. In a way, someone had. The version of my parents I thought I had. By sunrise, the tears had dried, and something colder had settled in their place. For the first time in my life, I thought a full sentence and believed it completely. I am not going to let them get away with this. The next morning, I drove back to Raleigh, the eviction notice folded in my bag like a cursed letter. I texted my manager that I had a personal emergency and wouldn't be in. First stop wasn't work. It wasn't even the bank. It was a small law office downtown, recommended by a friend who'd gone through an identity theft nightmare 2 years earlier. Her name was Alicia Patel, mid-40s, sharp eyes behind simple glasses. She listened as I told the story, my words tumbling out in a rush. I handed over the printed documents, the emails, my phone with the voicemail I'd saved of my mother from the night before, where she half admitted what they'd done. When I finally stopped, my throat was sore. Alicia leaned back, steepled her fingers, and said, "Okay, this is bad, but not hopeless." "Can we stop the foreclosure?" I asked, my voice cracking on "we." "That's our first priority." She tapped the mortgage document. "We need to prove this was obtained by fraud, that this is not your signature, that you never consented. The fact that your uncle notarized it is actually useful." "Useful?" I blinked. "He helped them steal from me." "And he left a legal paper trail doing it," she said. "If we can show he notarized something without you being present, that's malpractice at best, criminal at worst. Judges do not like fraudulent notaries. It undermines the whole system." A weird, grim satisfaction flickered in my chest. I hadn't thought of that. "We'll need a handwriting expert," Alicia continued. "Someone to analyze your real signature versus this one. Bank statements proving you never saw the loan funds. Records from the county showing the address change. And we'll file a fraud report with the bank and the police." "The police?" The word felt heavy. "These are my parents." Her gaze softened a little. "I understand. But right now, they're also people who committed financial fraud in your name. If you want the bank to take this seriously, there has to be a criminal complaint. You don't have to push for prison time, but the threat of charges gives us leverage." "Leverage," I repeated quietly. Growing up, that word had always belonged to them. They had leverage over me, financial, emotional, everything. It felt strange and a little powerful hearing it described as something I could have. "What if they try to say I agreed?" I asked. My mom already started with that I must have signed something electronically, that I forgot. Alicia smiled without humor. "Then we'll let them dig that hole. You'll stay calm. You won't confront them in person. You won't warn your uncle. Let them keep thinking you're the dutiful daughter who wouldn't dream of turning them in. Meanwhile, we'll build your case." So that's what I did. For the next few weeks, my life split in two. By day, I went to work, sat in meetings, reviewed reports, tried to act normal. By night, I became a detective in my own life. I pulled my credit reports, scanned for any other suspicious accounts. I found 2 old store cards I didn't recognize, opened when I was in college, paid off years ago. Tiny compared to the house, but they told a story. This hadn't been a one-time lapse. This was a pattern. I also found myself sitting in a therapist's office one Wednesday afternoon, something my friend had pushed me into. The therapist, a calm woman named Joy, listened as I described the eviction notice, the forged papers, my parents' phone calls. "So you're taking legal action," she said. "How do you feel about that?" "Like a monster," I admitted. "Like I'm the one tearing the family apart. Everyone's acting like I'm overreacting. My sister left me this voicemail calling me selfish. And my mom keeps saying, 'We're your parents,' like that should erase everything." Joy tilted her head. "If strangers had done this to you, taken out a loan in your name, nearly cost you your house, would you hesitate to call the police?" "No." "So what's the difference?" "They're my parents." "And that means they're allowed to hurt you in ways no one else is?" she asked gently. I stared at my hands. "I guess that's how it's always been." She smiled sadly. "Maybe this isn't you breaking the family. Maybe it's you finally refusing to be the one holding all the broken pieces." Those words stuck with me, echoing later on when I doubted myself. Alicia's handwriting expert, a grumpy older man named Richard, met with me and watched me sign my name 20 different ways. Then he compared them to the forged documents. His written opinion was brutal. "In my professional opinion, the signatures on the mortgage deed, line of credit agreement, and related documents are not consistent with the known, genuine signatures of Rachel E. Morgan," it concluded. "They show signs of simulation and deliberate imitation." We filed that with the bank, along with my criminal complaint. Signing that police report was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The officer, a young guy with kind eyes, looked at me like he couldn't quite reconcile mom and dad with felony fraud. "You understand?" he said gently. If this moves forward, your parents could be charged. I understand, I replied, even as my stomach twisted. They understood that when they used my name. Meanwhile, I answered my mother's texts with neutral one-liners. I let her think I was overwhelmed, confused, maybe willing to be talked into her version of the story. My dad finally called me himself, voice all forced joviality. Kiddo, your mom says you're upset. You know we'd never let anything bad happen to you. Then why is there an eviction notice on my door? I asked quietly. He sighed. You're being dramatic. The bank always threatens foreclosure. It's a tactic. We've got some things in motion. Big potential. Once it comes through, we'll pay it off and you'll never even notice the blip. Dad, I said, did you know it's illegal to sign someone else's name on a mortgage document? He went quiet. What are you getting at? Nothing. I forced a light tone. Just making sure you knew what you were doing. Don't you dare talk to me like I'm some criminal, he snapped, temper flaring. After everything we've done for you, college, helping you after your divorce, watching your dog when you travel, this family wouldn't even exist without the sacrifices your mother and I made. There it was. The guilt card. It had worked on me my whole life. This time it just made me tired. I appreciate what you've done, I said calmly. That doesn't give you a right to steal from me. You are blowing this out of proportion. We'll fix it. Just stay out of it. Don't go making trouble with the bank. You don't understand how these things work. That line, more than anything, hardened something in me. Stay out of it. Don't make trouble. Let them sort it out, probably by letting the house go and hoping I never dug too deep. I have to go, I said, and hung up before he could respond. That night, I forwarded the call log to Alicia. They're nervous, she texted back. Good, time to turn up the heat. Twist number 1 came 2 weeks later, in the form of a thick envelope from First Atlantic Bank. Inside were copies of every withdrawal made from the fraudulent line of credit. Alicia and I spread them out on her conference table. Look at this, she said, tapping one line. $30,000 to Whitaker Enterprises. That your uncle? Yeah, I said slowly. He does some contracting, landscaping, odd jobs. Another $20,000 had gone to a company I didn't recognize. A quick search revealed it to be tied to one of my dad's old poker buddies, but it was a cluster of smaller charges that made my skin crawl. High-end restaurants, jewelry stores, airline tickets, all within driving distance of my parents' town. Someone's been living large, Alicia murmured. Then she pointed to one line near the bottom. A $5,000 transfer to a name that made my brain stutter. Jenna M. Collins, my younger sister. Married, 2 kids, always struggling a bit, as Mom put it. Jenna, who'd cried on the phone when I bought the beach house, saying she was happy for me, but a little jealous you get to have nice things while we're stuck in this tiny rental. Your sister got money from this too, Alicia said softly. I stared at the paper, my chest tight. This wasn't just my parents' scheme. This was a family operation. My uncle notarizing, my dad schmoozing his buddies, my mom fronting the LLC, my sister getting a quiet cash boost while telling me she couldn't afford new school shoes for her kids. Later that night, against Alicia's advice, I broke my no confrontation rule and texted Jenna. Did Mom and Dad tell you where that $5,000 came from? She answered almost immediately. You're not dragging me into this. I thought they had a business loan. Don't you dare come for me. You didn't ask why their business loan showed up as a transfer from a line of credit in my name? I fired back. She replied with a voice note, her voice shaking with anger. You always think you're better than us, Rachel. You with your nice job and your beach house. Mom and Dad helped you so much, so they used your name. So what? Families share. You'd rather see them in handcuffs than lose a house you don't even live in full-time? I listened to it 3 times. What hit me the hardest wasn't her denial. It was the way she'd reduced my entire life, my work, my independence to a house you don't even live in full-time. like it was some toy I didn't deserve to keep if someone else wanted it. That was the moment I realized my revenge, my fight, was going to cost me more than legal fees. It was going to cost me my place in this family. And I still chose to keep going. Alicia suggested filing a civil suit alongside the criminal complaint. It becomes a matter of public record, she said. Anyone can see it. Employers, church friends, their neighbors. It puts pressure on them to settle. If they want this to go away quietly, they'll have to make you whole. I imagined my mother's face, hearing whispers in the pews, my father being avoided at the coffee shop, my uncle getting side-eyed by his notary clients. It felt petty. It also felt fair. So we filed. Rachel E. Morgan Wiesmark and Susan Morgan et al. Fraud, identity theft, unjust enrichment. That et al. Included my Uncle Dan and the shell companies they'd used. I didn't tell my family, I didn't warn them, I just waited. The explosion came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my cubicle half listening to a conference call when my phone lit up with my sister's name. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, my mother called. Then my father. Finally, a text from Jenna. "What the hell are you doing? Call me now!" I stepped into a hallway and listened to her voicemail. She was livid, accusing me of trying to ruin Mom and Dad, calling me dramatic, selfish, ungrateful. She threw in a jab about how, no wonder Ben left you, you only think about yourself, which was so low I actually laughed. I didn't call her back. I texted, "You should speak to your lawyer." Then I put my phone on, Do Not Disturb. A few days later, I went back down to the beach house to meet an appraiser Alicia had arranged. As I pulled up, I saw my parents' silver SUV in the driveway. My heart started pounding. They were on my porch, keys in hand. My mother turned as she heard my car door slam. "Rachel." She pasted on a brittle smile. "We need to talk." My dad stood behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. They looked smaller than I remembered them somehow. Or maybe I was finally seeing them without the filter of Mom and Dad. "You're trespassing," I said evenly. "This is my property." "Is it?" My father shot back. "Because last I checked, there's a bank that says otherwise. And now half the town knows all our business thanks to you." My mom stepped forward, hands clasped like she was praying. "Honey, please, drop this lawsuit. We can work this out as a family. You're blowing this so far out of proportion. Do you know what it did to your father to get served at work? People talk." "Good," I said. "Maybe they'll warn their friends not to let you near their bank accounts." Her face flushed. "How dare you talk to us like that? After everything." "You keep saying after everything," I snapped, my control finally slipping. "Let's be clear about what everything includes. Using my social security number when I was in college to open store cards, taking $5,000 out of this fake loan for Jenna, rerouting my mail so I wouldn't see the foreclosure notices. This isn't one mistake. This is a habit." They both froze. My dad's eyes flicked to my mom. "You told her about that?" he hissed. "She must have gone digging," my mom said through gritted teeth. "You see what you're making her do?" "I'm making her do?" I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping. "You did this, all of you. You treated me like an ATM with a heartbeat." My dad stepped closer, looming. "Watch it, Rachel. You're not the only one who can play hardball. You think your boss would like to know his trusted project lead is dragging her own parents into court? That doesn't scream team player to me." There it was. The threat. My career. My reputation. I met his eyes, hands still by my sides. "If you contact my employer about this, I will file additional charges for harassment and witness intimidation," I said quietly. "And I will make sure every word you've said to me is played in front of a judge." His mouth opened, then closed. Surprise flickered. This wasn't the daughter he was used to. My mom's voice turned pleading again. "Rachel, please, just say you'll drop it. We'll sign whatever you want. We'll give you back some of the money. But don't put your father in jail. He's your father." "You had a year to fix this," I said. "Before I even knew. You could have sold this house yourselves and paid the bank back. You could have come to me and confessed, begged, something. Instead, you let it slide until an eviction notice was taped to my door. You didn't just make a mistake. You rolled the dice with my life and hoped I'd never notice. Tears filled my mom's eyes. For a second, I faltered. This was the woman who'd sat beside my bed when I had the flu, who'd sewn my prom dress, who'd cried when I left for college. But then I pictured that bright orange notice, my name on a foreclosure I'd never agreed to. The tiny smirk my mom couldn't quite hide when she'd first visited the beach house, saying, "Must be nice to have this all to yourself." "I'll see you in court," I said. I turned, unlocked my door, and stepped inside. Behind me, I heard my dad curse under his breath. My mom sobbed something about ungrateful children. The SUV door slammed. Gravel sprayed as they reversed out of the drive. I leaned against the closed door and let myself shake for a full minute. My stomach churned. My cheeks were hot. Some part of me whispered that I'd gone too far. That good daughters don't take their parents to court. That family fights stay inside the house. Then I remembered Joy's words about broken pieces and Alicia's about leverage, and I straightened up. The legal process moved slower than my anger. There were hearings, motions, attempts from their side to get the suit dismissed. Their lawyer argued that I'd tacitly consented, that families share resources, that no real harm had occurred since the foreclosure wasn't complete. The bank dragged its feet, investigating while still sending default notices, but my revenge was like a slow tide, creeping higher with every piece of evidence we produced. We subpoenaed my parents' emails with the bank. There, in black and white, were messages where my mother pretended to be me, clarifying details about my employment, my income. She'd even attached a pay stub she'd gotten by snooping through my old filing cabinet when she visited. We called my Uncle Dan to a deposition. He sat at the long table, sweating, as Alicia asked, "Mr. Whitaker, can you describe the circumstances under which you notarized Ms. Morgan's signature?" "She came to my office," he said quickly. "We signed it. Standard procedure." "On what date?" He rattled off a date from a year ago. Alicia slid a paper across the table. "Are you sure it was that date?" "Yes. Because on that date, my client's work badge records, phone GPS, and credit card statement all place her in Atlanta, Georgia at a 3-day conference." She laid down printed records one by one. "Would you like to revise your answer?" He went pale, stammered, asked for a break. When he came back, his lawyer did most of the talking. "My client may have been mistaken about the exact date," the lawyer said, "but he maintains that Ms. Morgan was present at some point during the process." "Funny," Alicia said mildly. "Since her employer confirms she was out of state the entire week the documents were signed, and the bank's own notary log shows no other date, that deposition cracked something." 2 weeks later, my uncle's lawyer reached out with an offer. Dan would sign an affidavit admitting he'd notarized the documents without me present, based solely on my mother's assurance, in exchange for being removed from the civil suit. He was terrified of losing his notary license, his small business, his reputation. "I'm inclined to accept," Alicia said. "His testimony will help us more than anything we'd get from suing him. But it's your call." I thought about my uncle, the goofy man who'd taught me to skip rocks, who'd sneaked me candy at family barbecues. Then I pictured his name on that mortgage, the way he hadn't hesitated to help them risk my home. "Fine," I said. "He can save himself, but he's going to do it by telling the truth about them." The affidavit was devastating. In it, Dan admitted that my mother had brought him signed documents, told him I'd signed them at home but couldn't make it over, and begged him to notarize as a favor. "She said Rachel had agreed," he wrote. "I trusted my sister." Trusted. The same way I had, apparently. When that hit my parents' lawyer's desk, something shifted. They'd always assumed Dan would keep their secret. Now he'd betrayed them to save himself. Karma, I thought, watching my mother's favorite tool, family loyalty, turn on her. The bank, faced with a mounting pile of evidence that the loan was fraudulent, finally caved. We negotiated a deal. They would void the mortgage and line of credit, cancel the foreclosure, and remove all derogatory marks from my credit report. In exchange, I agreed not to sue them for negligence in approving the loan. "My house is safe," I whispered to Alicia when we left that meeting, my knees weak. "Your house is safe," she confirmed, smiling for the first time since we'd started. "That's the first piece. Now we deal with your family." The criminal side moved slower. The district attorney's office reviewed the police report, the affidavit, the bank records. One afternoon, I got a call from a woman introducing herself as Ada Melissa Grant. "We're going to move forward with charges against your parents," she said. "Identity theft, mortgage fraud, conspiracy. I wanted you to hear it from me before they're arrested." Arrested. The word made me dizzy. I sat down on my couch, my dog nosing at my hand, sensing my distress. "Will they go to prison?" I asked. "That depends on a lot of factors," she said. "Their age, lack of prior record, whether they cooperate. But this is serious. They won't just walk away with a slap on the wrist." I thanked her and hung up. Then I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling nothing at first. Numb. Then a wave of grief hit me so hard it knocked the breath out of me. I was doing this. I was sending my own parents into the criminal justice system. For a moment, I almost called and told the ADA to stop, to forget it. We'd fixed the house, that was enough. But then I thought about the pattern, the store cards in college, the $5,000 to Jenna. My brother's story, which he'd shared when he heard what was happening, that our dad had once borrowed his information for a small business loan and left his credit in tatters for years. If I let this go, what message did that send? That I was still the soft one, the one who could be pushed, guilted, manipulated. It wasn't just about them anymore. It was about me drawing a line in the sand. "I'm sorry," I whispered into the empty room, "but you did this." The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning. My parents were taken from their house in handcuffs. My sister called, screaming, sobbing, leaving me voicemails about how I'd destroyed our family. My brother, Ethan, who lived out of state and had always kept a quiet distance from the family drama, sent me a single text. "I heard about Mom and Dad. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "I'm not okay, but I'm safer than I was." "They did this, Ethan." He wrote back, "I know. I'm sorry it came to this." We ended up having a long call that night. He admitted more details about how Dad had used his name years ago, how Mom had smoothed it over with the same lines she'd used on me. "It's just a paperwork thing. We'll fix it. Don't overreact." He'd swallowed it because, as he put it, what was I going to do? Call the cops on Dad? He sounded both guilty and relieved that I'd had the courage he'd lacked. "You're doing the right thing," he told me, "even if it feels awful." The criminal case wound its way toward a plea deal. My parents' lawyer knew the evidence was stacked against them. Eventually, they agreed to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding prison. They got 5 years probation, community service, mandatory financial counseling, and a large restitution order. "Restitution?" I repeated when the judge read it out. "But the bank already voided the loan." "This isn't for the bank," the judge said, looking down at my parents over his glasses. "This is for your daughter, for the stress, the legal fees, the time spent defending herself against a mess she didn't create." The amount wasn't enough to ruin them, but it wasn't pocket change either. They'd have to sell their boat, cut back, maybe even downsize their house. For people like my parents, who cared so deeply about appearances, about having the newest car and the nicest vacation photos on Facebook, that was its own kind of punishment. My civil suit ended in a settlement as well. They signed a document admitting what they'd done, promising never to open anything in my name again, never to contact my employers or interfere with my finances. In return, I dropped the remaining claims. The day we signed, we sat in a small conference room, me on one side, my parents on the other, their lawyer between them. My mother looked 10 years older. My father's hands trembled slightly as he picked up the pen. He glanced at me, eyes full of something between anger and pleading. Rachel, he said hoarsely, we're your parents. Are you really going to go through with this? Put this in writing? I met his gaze. For the first time, I saw him not as dad, the authority figure, but as a man. Flawed, greedy, afraid. Yes, I said, because I need it in writing to ever feel safe again. He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a second, I wondered if I was being cruel. Then I remembered the eviction notice, the foreclosure letters they'd hidden. I remembered my mom's voice telling the bank she was me. I remembered them standing on my porch, more worried about gossip than my home. They signed. Afterward, outside the building, my mom caught up to me. Her face crumpled. I never thought you'd actually do it, she whispered. I thought you'd come to your senses. You raised me to stand up for myself, I said quietly. I finally did. You just don't like that it's against you. Tears spilled down her cheeks. We're going to lose friends over this. The church, people talk. How could you embarrass us like that? That, right there, was my final clarity. Not, I'm so sorry I hurt you. Not, I can't believe what I did. Just, how could you do this to us? You embarrassed yourselves, I said. I just stopped covering for you. I walked away before she could respond. The revenge, in the end, wasn't some dramatic movie moment. There was no audience applauding, no villains begging for mercy. It was a slow, grinding process of holding them accountable, piece by piece, until the picture of who they really were was visible to everyone, including themselves. The fallout rippled. My parents stepped down from several volunteer positions for personal reasons. Some friends stuck by them, others drifted away. My uncle's business took a hit. People didn't want a notary who'd once bent the rules for family. My sister and I stopped speaking altogether. She sent a few bitter messages about how, you always think you're better than us, then blocked my number. Family holidays look very different now. Last Christmas, I didn't go to Durham. I went to the beach house with a few close friends, strung up lights on the porch, and watched the waves crash under a gray December sky. It was quiet, a little lonely, but peaceful. Sometimes I still wake up in a sweat, dreaming that there's another notice on my door, another debt I didn't know about. I still double-check my credit report every few months. Trust, once broken that deeply, doesn't come back cleanly. But there are good things too. I sleep better, knowing my house is truly mine. I have boundaries now that I enforce without apologizing. I've learned to say no without a 3-paragraph explanation. I'm closer to my brother than I've ever been. We joke sometimes that we're the kids who opted out of the family scam plan, and there's a bittersweet comfort in that. Do I regret what I did? Some days, a small voice whispers, yes. It asks if I could have handled it privately, saved them the humiliation. On those days, I pull out the file Alicia gave me at the end of the case. I flip through my mother's fake emails as me, my uncle's affidavit, the spreadsheet of every dollar they quietly pulled from my house, and the voice quiets. Revenge, for me, wasn't about hurting them the way they hurt me. It was about exposing the truth they'd buried under years of family-first speeches. It was about making sure there were real consequences, not just another round of tearful apologies and empty promises. They tried to steal my vacation home. They almost succeeded. In the process, they taught me exactly how far they were willing to go for their own comfort, and exactly how little my boundaries meant to them. So I exposed them. To the bank, to the court, to the community that had always seen them as upstanding citizens, and maybe most importantly, to myself. Now, when I unlock the door to my beach house and step into the cool, familiar air, I feel something I didn't even know I was missing before all this. I feel like it's truly mine. Not because the deed says so, but because I fought for it. I drew a line and defended it, even when that meant standing alone against the 2 people I'd been taught never to question. Justice was served in courtrooms and bank offices and whispered conversations at church. Karma did its slow, steady work, turning their own choices back on them. And I? I finally stopped being the daughter who quietly let things slide and became the woman who will never again let anyone, even family, write my future behind my back.